Have you ever been cast into the shadows by your own flesh and blood, as if you were a burden, a mistake that should never have existed? At just 16, Amara, a girl from the outskirts of Port Harcourt, had already lived through that. Not just once, but through what felt like an endless storm of rejection. That night the rain came down in sheets. Thunder tore across the sky like it had something to prove. Her stepmother, Madame Aloho, screamed from the doorway, "Grab your bag and get out! I don't ever want to see your face again." Amara had no idea why. That very morning, she had cooked breakfast, washed dishes, and walked Madame Aloho's son to school. But then, money went missing from Madame Aloho's purse. No one asked questions. No one wanted to hear what Amara had to say. "I always knew you were a thief, just like your mother." One sentence. A verdict. And Amara was shoved into the rain like yesterday's trash. She clutched a torn plastic bag, wearing busted rubber sandals with one strap dangling. There was nowhere to go, no one to call. Her mother had died when Amara was just 9 years old. Her father, Mr. Tunde, had passed away from a stroke less than a year ago. The world had slowly abandoned her. And Madame Aloho, she had just hit the final switch. Amara was falling, fast and alone, into the life of someone nobody remembered. But if you think this is just a story soaked in sorrow, you haven't seen the whole picture. Because behind that brutal rejection was a journey that would leave people speechless. And there's one thing Madame Aloho never saw coming. The girl she threw out that night would one day become a name the entire nation of Nigeria would remember. Amara's childhood was more beautiful than most people would ever guess. Her father, Mr. Tunde, was a humble village school teacher. They lived in a small, worn-out house, but it was always filled with laughter. He taught Amara how to trace letters with chalk on an old wooden board, read her ancient Yoruba poetry, and every night before bed he'd whisper, "You don't have to be a princess, baby girl. Just be good. The rest will come." Amara grew up kind, sharp, always ready to lend a hand to the neighbors. People would often say, "That girl's got eyes like the morning sun." But the sun doesn't shine forever. When Mr. Tunde passed away, the neighbors cried, but quickly moved on, and Madame Aloho, his second wife, took over everything. She once promised to love Amara like her own, but nobody knew the truth. Madame Aloho's heart had been poisoned with envy long before Mr. Tunde took his last breath. Life changed its colors. From "Sweet Amara" to "Have you done the dishes yet?" From family dinners to crumbs left on the back counter. From warmth to walls. And then came that rainy night. The night Amara was thrown out, and not a single soul looked back. But this was just the beginning. The story isn't over, not even close. Amara walked aimlessly. The narrow alleys of Port Harcourt grew colder and more unfamiliar as the night wore on. Rain soaked through her thin shirt, mixing with tears, though no one could tell which wetness came from sorrow and which from the sky. She stopped under the awning of a closed-up corner shop, dry enough to lie down. Amara curled into herself, clutching a flimsy plastic bag that held a few old clothes, a smudged notebook, and a small photo of her and her father from a better time. She whispered into the silence, "Dad, if you were still here, I wouldn't be like this, right?" No answer came, only the soft, steady rhythm of the rain, like the sky was mourning with her. The next morning, a broom's sweep and hurried footsteps pulled her from sleep. An old woman was cleaning the sidewalk, glaring at Amara with suspicion. "Hey girl, what are you doing here? Get gone before security comes." Amara jumped to her feet, bowed slightly, and whispered a quiet "thank you,"
before slipping away without trying to explain. She kept walking. The deeper she got into the city center, the more people there were, but somehow the colder it felt. Everyone was in a rush. No one looked long enough to see the life already fading from her eyes. By noon, hunger turned into sharp, twisting pain. She sank onto a curb near a small eatery. The smell of fried chicken and spiced fries hit her like a wave. If someone just had one piece left over, just one. But no one did. She stood back up, rubbed her stomach, and kept dragging herself forward. And then the unexpected happened. A young woman wearing a Mama Cheese Kitchen uniform came out back carrying a tray of food. Her grip slipped. The whole tray crashed to the ground. She gasped and dropped to her knees, eyes brimming with tears. Amara, though barely able to stand, knelt beside her. "It's okay. I'll help you clean this up." "Who are you?" the girl asked, surprised. "Just someone passing by, but I know how to clean." A few minutes later, the mess was cleared. The server looked at Amara more closely. "Are you looking for a job?" Amara nodded before her brain could even process it. "I'll ask the boss. She's tough, but if you're honest, maybe she'll give you a shot." A door creaked open. That afternoon, Amara met Mama Chi, a woman in her 50s, with sharp eyes, a voice like a blade, and hands rough with years of hauling goods from market stalls to kitchen counters. "Name? Amara. What can you do?" "Anything. Just give me a chance." Mama Chi looked her up and down, silent. Then, 1 week trial. No pay. Do well, you stay. Mess up, you go. Amara lowered her head. "Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much." And just like that, from a nameless girl on the streets, Amara stepped into that tiny kitchen, not knowing that this would be the first place the world would begin to see who she truly was.
On her first day in Mama Chi's kitchen, Amara was nearly wiped out before she could even get her bearings. The air was thick with frying oil, heat pulsed from 3 coal stoves, orders were being shouted, and servers rushed past with trays. It all made her head spin, but not a single complaint left her lips. By 6 a.m., she had scrubbed the floors, chopped vegetables, washed pots, stacked chairs, and taken out the trash. Her back was soaked in sweat, her hands raw from the harsh dish soap. By nightfall, as Mama Chi locked up the place, she glanced at Amara, slumped over the sink. "Are you still alive?" she asked with a sharp nod. Amara jolted upright and forced a smile. "Yes, ma'am, still kicking." Mama Chi paused, then tossed her an old hand towel. "Be here earlier tomorrow. We open at 5. Day by day, Amara became part of the place. She memorized the full menu, remembered every regular's quirks, and cleaned with such care that the floor gleamed. But there was something Mama Chi hadn't expected. Amara didn't just cook. She saw food, like an artist sees a blank canvas. One Friday afternoon, the head cook called in sick. Orders piled up, panic set in. No one else knew how to season the restaurant's signature ogbono soup. Amara hesitated, then stepped forward. "Ma'am, could I try? My dad used to teach me how to make it." Mama Chi squinted at her, clearly doubtful. But after a long pause, she nodded. "Try, but if you mess it up, you'll wish you hadn't." Amara's hands trembled, but her movements were steady. She sautéed onions, toasted crayfish, stirred the thick ogbono paste with the gentle fire. She closed her eyes, hearing her father's voice in her memory as she worked. The aroma began to rise. The sous chef froze.
The server stopped mid-step. Time held its breath. She lifted the lid, steam curled upward, carrying a rich, savory scent, nutty, spicy, warm. A customer took the first bite and blinked, stunned. This tastes just like my mother used to make. I haven't had this in years." Mama Chi dipped a spoon into the pot, tasted silently. A long pause. Then she pointed at Amara. "From now on, you cook with me. Main line." Amara couldn't believe her ears. Tears welled up. "Thank you, ma'am. I won't let you down." From a girl treated like garbage, Amara had begun to create dishes that made people stand up and applaud. And Mama Chi, the same woman who once planned to fire her after a week, now watched her with quiet pride in every simmer, every plate. That night, after the last customer left, Mama Chi walked over and handed her a small envelope. "Week's pay. You earned it." For the first time in weeks, Amara held money she had made with her own hands. And just as she was folding the envelope, something unexpected happened. A man in a crisp white shirt stepped into the restaurant well past closing time. "Is there anything still warm?" he asked. Mama Chi opened her mouth, but Amara beat her to it, calm and composed. "Yes, sir. We've got yam pepper soup just finished." The man nodded. No one in the room knew it yet, but that man was Obiora Eze, CEO of the most prestigious luxury hotel chain in southern Nigeria. And that one bowl of soup would be the door to a future Amara never even dared to dream.
Obiora Eze was known for being particular. In the restaurant investment world, his name carried weight. His standards were high, and his praise was rare. But the moment the first spoonful of yam pepper soup touched his tongue, he stopped mid-sentence, put down his phone, and closed his eyes. "Who made this?" he asked quietly, after a long pause. The whole room froze. Amara was wiping down a table when she looked up, hands suspended in the air. Mama Chi stepped forward, about to take the credit, but Amara spoke first. "I did, sir." Obiora stared at her, a thin girl in a grease-stained apron, hair tied up hastily, but there was a strange light in her eyes. Calm, composed, something close to pride. "What's your name?" "Amara, sir." "Where did you learn to cook?" "My father taught me. The rest, I taught myself." He didn't ask anything else. He simply nodded and finished every last bite. As he stood to leave, he turned back to Mama Chi. "Give me her phone number." Mama Chi squinted. "Why?" "She might be the right fit for a role in my restaurant." After he left, Mama Chi looked at Amara. Her sharp eyes had softened, just a little. "You thinking of going?" I don't know yet." "I'm not going to stop you, but don't forget, you started here." Amara nodded, her heart trembling. Not with fear, but because once again, her life was shifting. 3 days later, Amara stood in front of the towering gates of Saffron Hotel and Dining, a high-end spot known to Port Harcourt's elite. Shiny black iron gates, staff in tailored suits moving with robotic precision. She felt out of place. But then, her father's voice echoed in her mind. "You don't need to be a princess, just be good." She took a deep breath and walked in. Obiora met her in the lobby. No smiles, no charm, just professionalism. "Amara, I want to test you in the prep kitchen. 1 week. No special treatment. You earn your space or you don't." Amara nodded. "Thank you, sir."
The kitchen was a battlefield. Knives chopping, oil sizzling, chefs shouting orders. Amara was immediately put to work, peeling buckets of yams, rinsing rice, scaling fish, scrubbing floors, restocking fridges. No one remembered her name. One-line cook called her the new errand girl, but she didn't complain. She observed with her eyes, listened with her ears. At night, she wrote everything down. Ingredients, techniques, the way the head chef stirred or seared. After closing, when everyone left, she stayed behind to clean more, wash every tool spotless, and even cooked trial dishes using scraps, just to understand. On the 5th night, Obiora happened to return early to check the kitchen and saw Amara cooking alone. She was testing a version of shrimp jollof no one had ever made in that kitchen. He said nothing, just watched. The way she layered the onions, added seasoning, tossed in bay leaves at the exact right moment, it was instinct, not recipe. When the dish was done, he stepped forward. She jumped, startled. "Who told you to make this?" "No one, sir. I just wanted to try, to learn." He looked at the steaming plate, then said, without expression, "Bring it to the dining hall. There's someone I want you to meet." Amara stood frozen. What she didn't know was that seated in the dining room was Madame Uzo, renowned judge of Nigeria's Next Culinary Voice, a woman known for turning unknown cooks into national icons. That night, as the silver spoon touched her lips, Madame Uzo lifted her head and stared at Amara. "You made this?" "Yes, ma'am. I taught myself." A long silence. Then, "I think I just found this year's diamond in the rough." Amara stood there, hands trembling, not knowing that tonight her story had just turned its next page.
1 week after that fateful encounter, the name Amara Ikechi began appearing in places she never dreamed of, on billboards for Nigeria's Next Culinary Voice, on Madame Uso's Instagram feed, and even in a local food magazine with a headline that read, "From Street Kitchen to Hotel Star Chef, the unbelievable journey of Amara." She could barely believe her eyes when she saw her photo, just a side shot in a busy kitchen, printed in bold accompanied by the caption, "The girl whose hands tell stories through flavor." But the journey ahead was far from easy. The TV competition Amara had been invited to wasn't just about talent, it was about presence, confidence, performance. Most contestants were formally trained abroad. They had wealthy families, personal stylists, media teams. They came not just to win, but to be seen. Amara came with a small bag, a few plain outfits, and a phone with a cracked screen. No stylist, no recipe consultant, no cheering crowd. Only herself. The first challenge? Transform a traditional dish into a 5-star experience. Amara chose bonga soup, a dish her late mother used to make when she was little. Spicy, rich, deep red from palm oil. The judges were skeptical. "You think a street dish like this can pass as fine dining?" She simply smiled. "I believe every dish has a soul. The question is whether you can make it speak to someone's heart." Amara's version was plated on crisp white porcelain, served with pineapple rice pressed in a banana leaf mold. The first bite brought silence. Then, a quiet nod from Madame Uso, and a smile. "This is the first time bonga soup has ever moved me." Amara advanced, not with tricks, not with flash, but with heart. But the hardest test was still to come. The final round would be filmed live from a 5-star hotel in Lagos. Each contestant was tasked with preparing a 3-course meal for a group of VIP guests. Solo, no help, just them
and the food. That evening, when Amara entered her assigned prep kitchen, she stopped cold. Standing inside was a familiar figure, Madame Eloho, her stepmother, the woman who once screamed at her in the rain, who said, "You'll starve out there." Now she stood there polished, in designer glasses, as if she belonged. "Amara," she spoke, a strange mix of hesitation and pride in her voice. "It's been a while." Amara didn't answer. She simply looked at her, the woman who once called her trash, now standing in a space where Amara was honored. No anger, no bitterness, just nothing left to say. Madame Eloho stepped closer. "I saw your name on TV. I never thought you'd make it this far." "I'm sorry," she added softly. "I was wrong." Still, Amara stayed silent. A voice echoed through the hallway. "Contestant Amara, please step onto the stage." She nodded, turned to leave, but paused. Then, without looking back, she said, "You were right about one thing. I was hungry, but I didn't die, and that hunger taught me how to cook with my heart." The kitchen door closed behind her, and Amara walked toward the spotlight, the same girl once tossed into the dark, who slept on sidewalks, who washed dishes at Mama Chi. But now, the light wasn't exposing her struggle. It was revealing who she had become.
The spotlight hit Amara's face like a reflection of memory. Every step she took on the grand stage of Nigeria's Next Culinary Voice wasn't just part of a competition. It was a step away from insults, rejection, and nights curled beneath rusted awnings. The room was still. The audience, the judges, and millions watching from home were waiting. What could a girl with no formal training, no diploma, and no backing possibly deliver? Amara began. Appetizer, kelewele, spicy fried plantains wrapped in a cashew shell crisp, topped with sweet mango glaze and mint leaves. Main course, grilled catfish in a rich ogbono wine sauce, paired with steamed cassava cakes. Dessert, pop pudding, a delicate corn custard served in glass cups, drizzled with honey and a touch of cinnamon. She finished on time. No shaking hands, no hesitation, only the lessons from her father, the discipline from Mama Chi, and the silent hours she spent mastering flavor, all coming to life in those plates. When she stepped back, the room was quiet. Then one clap, then another, and then the whole hall rose in applause. Madame Uzo stood. "I once said food is the language of the soul, and this girl didn't just speak, she made my soul cry." The studio erupted. Amara's tears fell, but she didn't hide her face. She held her head high. Her lips trembled, but her smile burned bright. She had won, not just the final round, but the war against her own past. The success of Amara's table spread like wildfire. Just 3 months in, the restaurant opened its second branch in Abuja. Diners came from all over, not just for the food, but to taste the story behind each plate. The story of a girl once treated like an afterthought in her own home. But Amara didn't let success lull her to sleep. She spent more time back at Mama Chi's kitchen, not to cook, but to sit quietly in the same corner she once cleaned, sipping a hot bowl of porridge, listening to the crackle of oil in the pan, and remembering. One day, while organizing the storage room at her flagship restaurant, Amara came across a tattered old plastic bag, the one she had clutched the night she was cast out. Inside was the smudged notebook, a faded photo of her father grinning wide, and a folded, yellowed paper. She opened it. It was a letter, written by her father before he died. a letter he never got to send. My daughter, if you're reading this, I may no longer be by your side, but never believe you're less than enough. People can take everything from you, but not your kind heart and not that strong, unbreakable mind. You'll go far, my child, farther than I ever dreamed. Amara folded the letter gently, tears falling, not from sadness, but from the truth that she had lived exactly as her father had seen in her. 1 year later, Amara launched the Kind Kitchen Foundation, a culinary training program for girls who had been abused, dropped out of school, or lived on the streets, just like she once did. It didn't just teach cooking. There were life skills classes, basic English, and above all, a course on believing in yourself. People asked, "Why not just focus on your restaurants? You're a star chef now." Amara smiled. Because once someone stopped to give me a bowl of porridge. Someone believed in me when I had nothing. Now, I'm just doing the same for someone else. One quiet evening, she stood on the balcony of her top-floor restaurant watching traffic glow below. Beside her stood Mama Chi, now retired but still visiting. "Didn't think you'd make it this far, Amara." "I never did either, but I never ran away." Mama Chi patted her shoulder, said nothing. Fireworks burst across the sky in the distance. Not for Amara, not for the restaurant, just Independence Day. But to her, it felt like the sky whispering, "You've lived well." And so, from a rainy doorstep to a shining kitchen, from rejection to reverence, Amara never needed revenge. She just needed to live her truth. Because sometimes the most beautiful victory is when the ones who once doubted you can only watch in silence as you rise.
Every great story leaves an echo, and Amara's journey wasn't just a story of success. It was proof that you don't need a noble birth to live a noble life. Amara didn't fight with fists. She fought with resolve. No one handed her a crown, but every drop of sweat she shed quietly wove her own throne, not to sit on, but to stand tall. Maybe you're going through darkness right now. Maybe you've been rejected, overlooked, forgotten. And maybe no one believes you're meant for anything great. But I want you to remember this. The strongest flowers don't grow in rich soil. They bloom from the cracks where no one expects life to survive. If the world has pushed you aside, don't fear it. That just might be the only place quiet enough to hear your own heart. If you've fallen, rest, then rise. Because sometimes just one more step is all it takes to change everything. And if you've ever felt like Amara, cast out, hungry, sleeping on the streets, believing you were worthless, let me tell you, you are not trash. You are an undiscovered treasure. Thank you for staying with us till the end. If this story touched you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a little light today. And remember, there are more stories to come, more journeys from darkness into dawn. See you in the next video.